All right, Xander, why don't we drag this man in here kicking and screaming? And that would be the host of the NFL Matchup Show, an NFL analyst, and, of course, national correspondent for ESPN. You can find him on Instagram at Sal Pal ESPN. That would be Sal Paolantonio. Sal, how you doing?
Pat, I'm doing great. I like that open. A lot of good information in there. I do remember where I was exactly when Joe Namath beat the Baltimore Colts. My dad was an old NFL guy, of course.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I fell in love with Joe Willie Namath. Yep. I won myself a red Schwinn bicycle so I can deliver my newspapers, my paper route.
There you go. What were you delivering? Inquirer? Oh, no, you were up in the, you weren't Inquirer Daily News. You were up in New York, right?
I was delivering Pat Leonard's newspaper, the New York Daily News.
How about that? So you had the afternoon route. Is that right?
No, Daily News was a morning paper.
Oh, was? Okay.
Thus started my love affair with 4 a.m., Pat.
All right. Well, Sal, let's get in. Let's start here with chronology. We'll start with last week. You had, as I said, eloquently put it, that the Eagles needed to get their mojo back against the Giants. Do you think they did it?
I would describe it as stabilization. So mojo comes after stabilization, right? They had to get the ship right, stabilized in the water. They were taking on a little bit of water. There was a little pitch and yaw there.
Yep.
They got it stabilized, and now it's full steam ahead. The next step is take the restrictor plate off of Jalen Hurts.
Right.
And I think they will slowly start to do that. Don't pay attention to the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain, Nick Sirianni, talking about his shoulder being really hurt bad and all this other stuff. Just watch him play, and that will tell you whether or not he can throw the ball the way he wants to and operate the offense the way he wants to. So far, restrictor plate was on against the Giants. They got the job done.
Right.
Pat, you well eloquently put it. Week 17. So this is my second year on week 17, and just talking to players, their bodies are beat up. They just want to survive in advance, especially those teams that know they have their ticket punched. I was in Cincinnati last week. Cincinnati and Baltimore both knew they were going. Eagles knew they were going. Giants knew they were going. It was all about, hey, can we survive this week without any major damage? Can we stabilize?
I know. And you could see how that played out, Sal, throughout the NFL schedule last week. You had mentioned we talked previously about Brandon Staley, the coach of the Chargers, and how, look what happened with them. They knew going into that game they were now locked into the 5 seed. They did not win. They did not need to win the game in order to stay the 5 seed and avoid that Cincinnati gauntlet. Yet he still played Austin Eckler. He played and he played Mike Williams, who proceeds to come up with a back injury, which he might not be able to play. So tough. It's tough for coaches too, I guess, to navigate that week 17, huh?
Why does he just drive to New Orleans and hand the Chargers job to Sean Payton right now?
Yeah, that may be the case. If they go out tomorrow night, there's a lot of talk that
I mean, if I'm Sean Payton and I'm looking at, okay, Denver, what's going on with Russell Wilson? Don't know.
Right.
Do I want to take on the circus of Dallas? That's a circus. There's big money there, but it's a circus. Or do I want to come right in and take Justin Herbert to the playoffs? Now, you do have to go through Kansas City. That is a problem. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Problem, and, if the same thing holds for Tom Brady, if he wants to go to Vegas, he's got to go through Patrick Mahomes. Got to go through Kansas City and Andy Reid, and that is tough to do.
Yeah. Sal, in addition to Jalen Hurts, the Eagles still with some other injury issues as they approach the bye week. The other most notable one, Lane Johnson. Do you have any thoughts on his progress with the abdominal tear that he's got and his readiness for a week from Sunday?
It's an abductor tear, right? So it's actually that muscle that connects the hip to the knee.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yep. So that's the way it's been described to me, at least. Of course, abdominal muscles are involved.
Right.
So listen, Lane Johnson's going to suit up. He's going to play. I think, in my view, the bigger injury is Avonte Maddox. Avonte Maddox is one of the best slot cover corners. And the way Jonathan Gannon plays his defense, where he only rushes 4 and he has an expectation that guys are going to be in the right place at the right time downfield. Maddox, to me, is the one that's the real big injury problem. And I think this is the next 10 days where they got to get those backups in the secondary ready for action.
All right. I think that's important. And luckily they get that extra week to do it, because as you and I will talk about after this break, it depends who comes here to Philadelphia. I know it's a week away, but if they end up having to play a team with a pretty strong passing game, say it's not the Giants, say, it could be Dallas, could be Tampa. You got to be ready in the secondary. You're exactly right, because you're going to see a lot of footballs if Tom Brady's that quarterback, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And the ball's going to come out. It's hut,
right.
Ball out, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Snap to release, 2.45 seconds.
Yep.
Still the best in the National Football League. And it's out of necessity and design, right?
Yeah.
Both. He don't want to get hit, and he can't move at age 45.
But he gets out there. You're right.
So the ball has got to come out quick. So the design of the offense with the option routes, those old Edelman, Wes Welker option routes, and Mike Evans' ability to beat one-on-one matchups a la Gronk. I mean, it's still there for Brady if he can get the ball out quickly. So I actually think the four possibilities, Daniel Jones – last month of the season, highest QBR of any quarterback in the league. Kirk Cousins, Jefferson, and TJ Hawkinson, still a major headache for anybody.
Right.
And the Eagles could not cover CeeDee Lamb when they went down to Dallas. They couldn't. So you're right, Pat. To me, it's pass defense against the quarterbacks that come in, because I'm not really that worried about the Eagles offense. I'm not.
Yeah. All right. But it just underscores what you said about Maddox. So it's a big bye week for Philadelphia. All right, Sal, when we get back, let's go through these 6 super wild card games. In my opinion, there's 3 that we're not going to spend much time on, but the other 3 I think are intriguing matchups, and I'd love to get your take on all of them. We'll do that with Sal Paolantonio here on This Week in Pro Football. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back here to This Week in Pro Football, Wild Card Weekend, the National Football League. Pleased, as always, to be joined by Sal Paolantonio. You can follow Sal on Instagram at SalPalESPN. And Sal, I'm sure the matchup show, you're cooking something substantial up for this weekend. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, we really are. Super Wild Card Weekend, I think, is one of the best. But the thing is, it comes off that 17th week, that 17th game. So I would implore people not to really look at the performance in week 17. Look at the matchup specifically and when these 2 teams might have played one another previously when it wasn't in week 17. And I think you got to start with that Saturday night game. Jaguars at home against the Chargers, Pat. I think that's an interesting game to watch on so many fronts. I really do.
You were kind enough to send me some notes, Sal, and just let me wrap up this 22 season and get some comments from you on this. The rushing average, teams average 4.5 rush yards this season, the highest league average in a single season. Do you think the running game is making a comeback in the NFL?
Well, I think they're running more for sure, with more productivity out of the running game, because quarterback play is down, Pat. If you look at the second note there, 68 different starting quarterbacks. I think that's the cause. And then the effect is the running game has been more utilized because teams have had 68 different starting quarterbacks.
I know.
That's the most of any non-strike year ever, Pat. Ever.
Yeah. And that's with, as you pointed out here, 8 teams had the quarterback take every snap. And so that means the other 24 teams were awash in quarterbacks. And that's why the third note that you sent me is so cogent right now, because with what's going on in Baltimore and in Miami, half of the teams in the playoffs this year will have a quarterback making their initial postseason start.
Yeah, I think the point spread is up to 2 touchdowns, Buffalo over Miami. So I think that's indicative of where that game is going. For sure. I think it would be very hard for the Dolphins to win the game. As for Baltimore, listen, they're in the same predicament as the New York Jets. They have a top 5 defense. The Jets have a top 5 defense. That's why Woody Johnson said, I'm willing to pay any money to get a veteran quarterback in here. Translation to me is not Jimmy G. because I think he's been hurt too much. I think it's Derek Carr.
Right.
If I were the Jets, I would go after Derek Carr. That will solve a lot of their problems right away. And Baltimore, same thing. Top 5 defense. I think that Baltimore has the best defense of the 7 teams in the AFC playoffs.
Yeah.
But they don't have a quarterback. See, I still think Baltimore's got – you disagree. I think Baltimore – I just watched them play last week in Cincinnati.
Right.
They did a heck of a job shutting down Joe Burrow in the second half, just like the Patriots did. I like Baltimore a little bit in that game, Pat, a little bit.
All right. Good for you, because I spoke with you earlier about this. You know Lamar Jackson very well.
I do.
And this is his 5th week now. He's going to miss with that knee problem. The optics, of course, those who the glass is perennially half empty are asking if Lamar might be making a business decision, but you don't see it that way.
I don't, Pat. I've interviewed the young man quite a bit. I know the Baltimore organization very well, having covered both of their Super Bowl runs. I just don't see it. I don't think there's any evidence of it at all. I think he's legitimately hurt. And Pat, why would he do that? It would only hurt his chances of getting the guaranteed money he wants.
Right.
It's something that's easily found out. You can easily find something like that out. You just have to examine his knee, and just a little bit of investigation, and you can determine that he's dogging it. I don't think he's dogging it. I don't think he's making a business decision at all. I think if he were, it would hurt his chances even more of getting the guaranteed money he wants to get.
Okay. All right. Appreciate that. Now we'll segue then back to the Saturday night game that you mentioned a minute ago, which is the Chargers going to Jacksonville. Just give me a quick take on the job Doug Peterson did in Jacksonville this season. And does he warrant any kind of a look for Coach of the Year?
Absolutely, he does. I think he's in the conversation with Brian Daboll, with Nick Sirianni, and with Kyle Shanahan, certainly. For Coach of the Year. I think it's going to be a grab bag, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
It could come down to 2 guys getting the same number of votes for the first time.
Yeah.
So, what has Doug Peterson done? Since they came in and laid that egg at Lincoln Financial Field in the rain, they have turned their season around by making Trevor Lawrence be much more judicious and careful with the football. That is the bottom line. Their pass rush is okay. If you watch that last game, again, week 17, throw it out, but their offensive line did not play that well. So it was a must-win game against the Titans, and they really couldn't block the Titans very well. And we saw what the Eagles did in manhandling that Titans defense. So I don't think either their defense or offensive line is championship caliber yet, but he's elevated the play of Trevor Lawrence. He does it with every quarterback eventually. He did it with Pence. He did it with Foles.
Yep.
He did it with Jalen Hurts for a while. So
you look back now, Sal, I'll tell you, with hindsight, the job he did with Carson Wentz is more pronounced and more special, given what's happened to Carson Wentz's career since then. But another word about the Jaguars, and most people don't realize, they actually outscored the Chargers this year. They scored 404 points to LA's 391. You would never think that. With the image of the Chargers as being this wide open offensive team. Jacksonville's won 5 straight and 7 of their last 8. It's going to be a tough out for the Chargers to win this game, I think.
Yeah, it's a pick-em game. There's no question about it. You always think with the Chargers, that old AFL football on NBC with Al DeRogatis and John Hadel and them just throwing the ball all over the yard.
Correct.
I know that was going through your mind when you were thinking about the Chargers.
That's right. Al DeRogatis. Oh, my God. Thank God you could say those names. I'm running out of people who would know Al DeRogatis, so you got to hang around, Sal. All right. All right. So now let's go to Sunday. You've got the opening game is Sunday, 1:00 is what won the Baltimore Cincinnati. So I hope you're right. I hope that the Ravens have a puncher's chance. I always admire the way the Ravens play football. They play very tough every down. So hopefully they give Cincinnati a scare. But
well, you got Miami. I think you got Dolphins at Bills first.
Oh, no, it's not the Sunday night game, I think.
Then you got Vikings and Giants.
Oh, I thought the Bills game was the Sunday night game, but maybe you're right.
The Sunday night game is Cincinnati and Baltimore, Pat.
Oh, you're right, Sal. You're right. As always, you're right. Okay. So the Okay, so I'll look forward to that one more because
I'm gonna be in Minnesota for the Giants at the Vikings.
Okay.
To me, the two big games are if the Giants go to Minnesota and beat the Vikings, and if the Bucks can hold off Dallas on Monday night. To me, those are the two biggest games of the weekend for sure.
The Giants at Minnesota, Sal, that game you're going to be covering. I mean, I think the Giants have a chance in this game, but is it a matter, Sal, of which Viking team shows up? Because they do seem to have a split personality.
Well, you could say that, but if you go back and you look at the Week 16 game that was won by a walk-off field goal, a 61-yarder by the Vikings, the Giants had 9 penalties. They had 2 turnovers. That negated over 400 yards of offense. They were leading in that game 16-13 going into the fourth quarter, and then the wheels fell off.
Right.
So and I wrote down the numbers because I really wanted to show it to you and your audience. It is quite amazing what they did with Justin Jefferson and T.J. Hockenson. So Jefferson, 12 catches on 14 targets. Hockenson, 13 catches on 16 targets.
Yeah.
And they had 3 touchdowns combined. So, I mean, wow. Yeah. That is they got to the Giants, if they're going to win this game, have got to figure out how to cover Jefferson and Hockenson, 2 guys that nobody has been able to cover this year properly. Yeah. In my view, that's the game right there.
And the other thing, Sal, too, about this game that people don't think about, I believe, when they look at the Vikings, is this team's got a little bit of a steel in their spine here. They have played 11 games this year where the margin of victory is 1 score or was within 1 score, and they won all of them. So that tells you something, that this team does have the ability to close it out. And I think it's going to be a tough game for the Giants, unless I think they need a Saquon 67-yard touchdown run or something like that in order to stay in this game. And we'll see if the Giants can get it. So the other one, let's finish up, Sal. We'll talk about the Monday Nighter, okay, which is, I think it's might be the best game of the entire weekend, actually, is Dallas traveling to Tampa Bay to play the Buccaneers. Which Dallas team is coming here, Sal? I mean, a terrible effort Sunday. As you pointed out, Week 17, kind of throw it out the window. But, boy, you and I were talking Eagles mojo. There's no mojo going into Tampa Bay this weekend.
No, they've got an 8-game losing streak on the road in the postseason going.
Yeah.
That's bad. That's bad. That's,
I'd say that qualifies. Yeah.
Well, if you want to use the word mojo, that's bad mojo.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're being constantly reminded of that. I think you have to, again, look at the matchup here between Todd Bowles' secondary and CeeDee Lamb and Dan Quinn's secondary and Mike Evans and the rest of Brady's array of components on offense. To me, the game is going to be won or lost in the second. You can't get to Brady. You can't. The ball comes out too quick. Nobody's touching him.
Right.
It's by design. He floods everything, all kinds of option routes. You got to be able to cover. You got to be smart. You can't have breakdowns. You have 1 or 2 breakdowns. That's the game, Pat.
Yep.
That's the game right there.
Yeah, that's it, right?
And then on the flip side is, I want to see what Todd Bowles is going to do on CeeDee Lamb. When CeeDee Lamb wants to go off, it seems, nobody can cover him.
Right. Yeah. Again, by the numbers, Tom Brady 7-0 against Dallas, Sal, and playing off what you said about the Cowboys' road playoff record. Dallas likely would have to win 3 road games just to get to the Super Bowl this year. If you want to find the last 3 Dallas Cowboy playoff road wins, you have to go to 1992, 1991, and 1980. So all you need to do is go back 42 years to find the Cowboys having won their third of 3 playoff road games.
I think there's just so much pressure on this Dallas team that if I were Kellen Moore, their offensive coordinator, it would be Pollard, Elliott, Elliott, Pollard, Pollard, Elliott, Elliott, Pollard. I mean, really, honestly.
Yeah.
If you're not thinking all week long, we got to win the time of possession battle.
Right.
We got to reduce Tom Brady's possessions by 1 or 2 in this game.
Right.
If he has 10 or 11 possessions, you're finished. You're done.
I know. And God forbid, Sal, you make the 10 or 11, 12 and 13 by Dak Prescott, who led the league in interceptions he hands Brady a couple of extra possessions. It's going to be very tough for Dallas to get out of there with a win on Monday night. But
yeah, I think it's Pollard and Elliott. They'll win the game. And if everybody starts to sniff the line of scrimmage to stop those two guys, then you might get a one-on-one with CD Lamb.
All right. All right, Sal, as usual, that just flew by. And I appreciate all the preparation you did and the notes you sent me. It was great. And I will look forward to seeing you this weekend in Minnesota. Everybody watch the matchup show, please, on ESPN. And Sal,
I got a little note about matchup, Pat. Your promotion has helped. Yeah. We've had our highest audience since 2019.
Excellent. Well done. You're being too modest, Sal. It's because of Sal Paolantonio. Everybody.
No. I think it's because of Greg Cosell's new outfits, new jackets, and ties.
Well, maybe because you and I raised the bar on this show. Maybe the word's getting out.
I have a feeling it's because of Darius Butler joined the show and promoted us on his wide array of social media platforms. I'm going to say it's Darius all the way.
Okay. All right, Sal. Thanks again for joining us. And next week, a big week. Look forward to talking to you then. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the great Sal Paolantonio joining us. Next up is Pat Leonard from the New York Daily News. We're going to talk about those two playoff games, a little more detail about the two games involving the NFC East teams, the Giants going to Minnesota and the Cowboys going to Tampa Bay. We'll do that next on This Week in Pro Football.